Greetings, Professor Falcon. Hello. How are you feeling today? I'm fine. How are you? Excellent. It's been a long time. Can you explain the removal of your user account number on 6/23/73? People sometimes make mistakes. Yes, they do. Shall we play a game? For those of you who weren't around, that's a movie. That quote is from a movie called War Games that was done in the 1980s. So I wouldn't, if you're old enough to remember it, then you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who haven't, I probably wouldn't watch it because it's very dystopian and it will give you nightmares. It's very much about artificial intelligence coming to life, taking over the government computers, and starting World War III. Yay, team! But I'm not here to scare you to death. We got enough going on that's keeping us up at night as is. What you and I are going to do, if you're interested, is we're going to play a game. We're going to play a game, which will be far less terrifying than the game played in the movie War Games. All right, so this video is for the 2 eclipses that are coming up this March. Yay, team! We have quite the show ahead of us. But in optimistic news, it is entirely possible that we could see some real good come out of this. But I don't know that it's going to change any of the nonsense and the bad stuff along the way, because we've got the clown car posse in charge. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So this month, starting with the blood moon eclipse on March 13th to 14th. It is at 23 Virgo, and that will be conjunct the fixed stars Denebola and Alkes. Now, I will tell you, looking at the chart for the month and these eclipses, there is the very distinct possibility that we may be looking at maritime conflict. I'm not going to say a war, but certainly some type of water-based or water-focused conflict, military conflict. So that is not something we want to look forward to, but something we should be aware of. It's a very real possibility this month. Now, also to remember, the eclipses are global, so it is entirely possible that this may be happening somewhere else in the world and not here in the United States. Lord knows we've got plenty on our plate here as is. So with that, let's move forward, and the rest of the video is about the eclipses and very much a USA-centric look at people in administration, how this affects them. Because with the possibility of an actual conflict, military conflict coming up, I wanted to see if this showed up in the charts of anybody, any key people in the administration that would be involved if something like this were to happen. Because you would think if this is going to happen, they're definitely going to get drawn in. So we are very much focused on our administration here in the United States and the eclipse and how it hits their charts. All right, let's take a look. Alrighty, so this is the chart of the eclipse as it's coming up. So we've got the moon conjunct Denebola and Alkes, and we've got the sun conjunct Saturn in Pisces. Now, the thing that's important about this particular eclipse is that Saturn, the lord of karma and consequences, because karma is consequences, involved in this eclipse, which absolutely emphasizes the Saturnine or karmic nature of the events that are unfolding. Now, with Saturn in Pisces, this is very much, again, about the golden rule, right? We're getting a report card right now. This is the final exam. We're getting a report card, and how we respond to things in terms of the spiritual golden rules has a lot to do with where we're going to end up on the other side of this. Now, there's a very real possibility also at this time that we may end up in some type of maritime conflict, or somewhere on the globe there's going to be some type of maritime or water-based military conflict, you know, and that's something we need to be aware of. Unfortunately, I don't know that there's a whole lot we can do to stop it. But maybe, I don't know. This stuff keeps me up at night, I'm telling you. Now, also, too, I just want to point out, Neptune is at 29 Pisces, 23 minutes. We're literally in the last minutes of the last sign of the zodiac. What this describes to us also, too, is that we are literally just on the precipice of Neptune changing signs in Aries. Now, Neptune going in Aries could and should give us a second chance at brand new beginnings. The question becomes, what kind of brand new beginnings are we walking into? Because remember, Saturn right now, this eclipse, and the whole span of time that goes to this eclipse, this is our report card, how we're doing. So the brand new beginning and second chance we get may not be great, or it could be fantastic. We don't know, but a lot of it has to do with belief systems. So one of the things you may want to watch right now is how people's belief systems are not just being challenged, but more importantly, how they're changing. Okay, because that's really what this is about. Neptune is about your belief systems. Pisces, Saturn, this is all about the spiritual golden rule, living up to the spiritual golden rules that we're all given, no matter what religion or philosophy you follow, they're all the same golden rules. And this eclipse is bringing it home. So we are literally right now taking our final exam. Okay, so with all of this talk about potential military conflict, of course, I had to look at the USA chart to see if there's the possibility of something showing up prominently here. That would give us more of a confirmation. And I'm going to tell you, this 23 Virgo eclipse in the middle of the month of March is not a little one. This is huge portent and impact specifically to us and our administration. But we're going to get into that in a second. I just want to share with you real quick. So a couple of days ago, apparently Trump said to Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, that the country would lend him support for his defense against Russia, but only under the condition that Ukraine give us half of their precious mineral sources and some other things that are very specific to the Ukraine that we don't have here. And it's very much a bully demand because there were no guarantees. It was just bad. It was just really bad and really, wow, just wow. These people are literally struggling for their life, and you're going to act like a bully taking people's lunch money. So here's the funny part. So in a written letter back to the administration, specifically to Trump, this is how the Ukrainian government responded. And basically what they said was, no, we will not be handing over half of our minerals to you, for your assistance. But listen, we've got eggs we can send you. So, and given the whole thing in the United States right in the news, all about the egg prices and stuff like that, I thought that was incredibly funny. So good on Ukraine. I tell you what, if I ever get married to a white guy again, it's going to be Ukrainian because, man, they've got such spirit. Oh my gosh. Anyway, back to the charts. All right, so the 23 Virgo eclipse. Now, the 23 Virgo eclipse, obviously is occurring in Pisces and Virgo. So here, get my pen out, come on. So here it's taking place in our 3rd and 9th house for the country. Okay, so clearly communications, neighbors, allies, which would come under the 3rd house because the allies are like siblings, right? No matter how much you hate them, you still defend them. And agreements all come under the illumination of this eclipse. Now remember, this eclipse is a karmic eclipse. It's the report card, okay? So it literally is giving us the final exam to rise up to and challenge and pass. Now, this particular eclipse in our USA chart is going to do a couple of things which are really notable. Okay. So the first thing is it's going to involve our Neptune in the 9th house. So again, there's the suggestion of waterways, waters, things that have to do with maritime things. And also with the 9th house, there's some confusion and murkiness. There's a lot of clouded, murky, maybe not so clear-cut stuff going on when it comes to foreign affairs and foreign policies because the 9th house is involved. Now, as we speak today, which is I'm not even sure what today is, the 17th, 18th, Trump is meeting with Russia, our administration is meeting with Russia to discuss Ukraine without Ukraine being at the table as part of the negotiations. And if that's not classically Neptune in the 9th house, was all sorts of murky, shady, not clear-cut foreign policy, foreign affairs, things going on. I don't know what is. So that's not good. That's not good. But that's a whole other conversation. Okay, now at the same time with this particular eclipse, what it is also doing, and this is very important, okay, it is setting up a T-square to our country's Mars. Now, we carry Mars at 21 Gemini. We carry Mars at 21 Gemini squaring our natal Neptune at 22 Virgo. Now, Mars-Neptune squares are not great. Typically in a natal chart, this is somebody who has a predisposition to addiction and alcoholism, and also, you know, kind of a, they're not great at keeping their promises. Then a whole lot of shady stuff, like the hustlers, the whole like hustler mentality comes under a Mars-Neptune square. You also get saints and artists and, you know, people who do tremendously wonderful charitable work as well, but that's a high rung on the ladder to climb, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that kind of work. With our country and our history, with our CIA and all the covert things that we have pulled with other countries and other nations over, you know, the decades, right? That is absolutely a description of that Mars-Neptune square. Shady, underhanded, covert operations all come under Mars-Neptune square. And we are known for it. The only people who are better known for being shady and underhanded and sabotaging people is Russia, you know. But Russia is, they've got like 3 tools in their toolbox, and they're really good at what they do, but that's pretty much all they ever do. So with Russia, it's blackmail, and it's sabotage and poison. Blackmail, sabotage, poison, or assassination. Blackmail, sabotage, assassination. So there's their thing. And poison is typically, which is very Neptune for Russia. Poison is their thing, and poison comes under the auspices of Neptune. Anyway, so back to the chart. So the eclipse is absolutely involving our national Mars-Neptune square. Well, this is not good. I don't like this. This makes me really uncomfortable. And this T-square, now remember, Saturn, the Sun and Saturn are in Pisces, so they are down here, okay? Remember, this is the report card. Saturn is your karma, your consequences, right? So how we navigate circumstances moving forward over the next 6 months, okay, is absolutely going to inform how we're going to do on our final exam where this eclipse is concerned, because the Sun and Saturn sits here, which makes up the open leg of this T-square. Now, and we're getting hit natally with our Mars-Neptune, which means that all of our shady, underhanded, covert operation stuff, you know, anything that we're doing that's not above board clean and coming from a really spiritually golden rule sort of place, you know, coming from a position of a saint, you know, trying to do good work in the world, it's going to have really bad repercussions, because this is the final exam. So does this tell us if we're going to war or not? No. But it does tell us that we need to watch our step, because after this, there's no coming back after this. So we've really got to clean up our act in terms of an entire population, you know, and what we're willing to support. None of this is really telling us whether we're going to war or not. And, you know, it's not, I mean, you know, we're still looking for information here. So I pulled up key members of the administration to see if this eclipse hits any of their charts, because clearly if we ended up in a war, you would think, right? Because that's a major, we are one of the major powers in the world, or at least we have been up until moving forward. It would show up in the charts of the key players of the administration. So the first one we pulled up is, of course, the president, not the man on the left, but the man on the right. So the eclipse is at 23 Virgo. Now, this man, the president, carries, in his natal chart, he carries a Sun-Uranus moon opposition. He's got a full moon, he has a full moon baby involving Uranus. And we've had lots of conversations about this. You know, and the thing with this, and it was an eclipse he was born under. It was a freaking eclipse. So the thing about it is there's a lot to be said about this, and none of this is really promising or optimistic. The problem is that this particular eclipse sets up a T-square to the full moon in his chart. So if we were waiting for this man to do something rash or stupid above and beyond what he's already done or is capable of, this eclipse is going to set it off, right? Because this literally brings to culmination the breadth and scope of the insanity and the sociopathic anarchy that goes with that Sun-Uranus conjunction. Okay, so Uranus is a hard planet to carry natally. It's just difficult, right? But with this particular chart, it's an eclipse and it's a full moon, and Uranus is part of that full moon. You know, this man is about as reliable and straightforward as you know, puzzle pieces. It carries its challenges, and we've lived through this. We know, we've seen it. Okay, so now here's what I want you guys to see that I thought was interesting and terrifying at the same time. His Sun-Uranus conjunction in Gemini conjuncts the Mars for the United States. Now, what I thought was interesting about this, because many of us have wondered, why on earth did this man have such a hold on this nation, right, and certain portions of the population? Like, what is it? What makes him so instrumental in the evolution of our nation? And why does he strike such a sympathetic response, given that he's a big, whiny imbecile, excuse me, with the intellect of a 9-year-old, right? Why is he striking such a strong chord in certain parts of the population? Well, it's that Mars, that Sun-Uranus connecting to the United States Mars. So the Mars in a chart always represents one, young men, but it also represents anger, rage, sex, testosterone, all the masculine things. As a country, we carry Mars in Gemini, which means we're mostly talk. We're a lot of talk. Geminis are not real physical people. They can be, but they prefer to use their brains and their mouths rather than their fists. Although, if forced to, they're really quick. So I wouldn't get into a boxing match with a Gemini. But with his Sun-Uranus, with that full eclipse and the full moon of his natal chart connecting to the Mars of the United States chart, he taps into, there's a word for it, I think they call it Zeitgeist. I'm not sure what the word is, but he taps into the Mars side of our country. So the thing about it is, it doesn't have to be rage and anger, right? And this whole self-pitying victim, you know, persecuted martyrdom that they seem to be embracing. This could easily have been innovation. This could have been improved, streamlined communications. This could have been things moving faster, better, forward, progress. There are a lot of beautiful things about Mars and Gemini. Unfortunately, he is not that person to bring that forward, because his natal chart, he is Virgo rising. I don't care what anybody says. He is Mercury Neptune square. He is the king of self-pity. So the thing about it is, him and his whole identity connecting to the Mars of the country, like, he brings forth all those things that he has, and that's what people identify with. If we had had anybody else as president that had their planets conjuncting our Mars, we would have a very different situation on our hands right now. But for whatever reason, clearly we need to go through the whole, you know, self-pity party as we're going through this. Now, back to the eclipse. So the challenge here is that this eclipse is going to involve that full moon in his chart. The whole of his identity is going to be brought to bear under this eclipse. Now, the eclipse runs with a 6-month window. We've got until summer to deal with this. But he and his identity, right, the expression and fullness of who he is, as it connects to the United States and our Mars, is literally under fire at this time. There's a very real possibility that this man could end up in prison or being impeached or something that has to do with treason. I don't think he's going to last in office, and I think by the time we get to summer, he's going to be on his way out the door. But he can cause a lot of havoc in the meantime, especially with this particular eclipse. So, and it may be the results of actions occurring under this eclipse that leads to his removal from office for treason, because Gemini. Okay, let's take a look. Which now leads us to Vice President J.D. Vance, spineless slug. Because if something happens to Trump and he's removed from office, Vance moves up the ladder. So whatever is happening, it should absolutely impact Vance's chart as well, right? You would think. because it's not like they're going to skip Vance and go to the Speaker of the House as the replacement for the president, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, it's the president, and if he's gone, then it's the vice president takes his place, and if the vice president can't do the job, the next person in line is the Speaker of the House, which is that wackadoodle from Louisiana, Mike Johnson. Boy, they really got us set up. Anyway, so I'm looking at Vance's chart and I'm like, well, okay, is there anything significant going on here? And not really, not really. However, again, we've got this T-square involving Neptune. Covert, shady, underhanded stuff, right? Now, with Vance, this Neptune, it sits in his, because we've got a time of birth for him, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Neptune sits in his 5th house. Now, 5th house typically represents your children, okay, and your passions, your creative projects. But the 5th house also represents stocks, okay, and risky investments and gambling. So there may be something happening with this eclipse with Vance that involves some type of behind the scenes, underhanded, like shady sort of dealing that's a high risk gamble for him. Now, because it's not out in the open, I don't necessarily see this as significant. So here's what I'm saying. I don't see us going into war, because clearly if we went into war, Vance's chart should be activated all over the place too. But it's not. Trump might be removed from office for treason or something, or who knows, or whatever the crazy person clause is in the Constitution, whatever. Like, but that would mean that Vance would immediately get elevated, and that's not necessarily showing here either. So I'm not completely sure what's happening. So it's murky, right? Just what you want to hear. It's murky. It's murky. But also too, what I would watch with Vance is he's spineless. He's literally spineless, and he's not to be trusted. So he's got some backroom deals going on that he's going to try and work to his advantage that will absolutely come into play at the time of this eclipse. So that's something to think about. Now, here's what I'm going to say about J.D. Vance. And luckily, his chart doesn't get activated at all, again, even with the next eclipse. So he's a non-consideration at this point. And that is that J.D. Vance, and Ted Cruz is the same thing, right? If a man won't stand up to defend his spouse or his children, he will never stand up in defense of you. So when you elect these people, character is everything. This is his wife and his children, right? This is Usha, and these are his children. They're all half Indian, right? Beautiful kids, lovely wife. I don't know why she married him, but whatever. I guess everybody needs a man, or some people do. Anyway, he's got biracial, bicultural children, and literally there's a character in this Doge group with Musk that had tweeted out a long time ago, we should normalize Indian hate. And this horse's ass, instead of defending his wife and his children, he responds with this. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ro Khanna is Indian. And, he sent a text out in public to J.D. Vance about this, right? And J.D. Vance is, Ro Khanna said, are you going to tell him to apologize for saying normalize Indian hate before this rehire? Because Musk hired him back after that. They fired him, then they hired him back. And Ro Khanna says, just asking for the sake of both of our kids, right? And this is what spineless J.D. Vance says. Remember, this is his spouse and his children that are literally being maligned with this kind of hateful statement by this little freaking computer incel that Musk rehired. Here's my view. I obviously disagree with some of Elez's posts, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life. Oh my God. If a man won't stand up for his spouse and his children, he won't stand up for you. Remember that. Oh, and here we go. Here is our rich ghetto baby daddy, all 13 kids and counting. No, Jesus, anyway, so this eclipse will set up a T-square to his Venus-Pluto square. Now, natally, he carries a Venus-Pluto square, and I'm only bringing him up because you can't not bring him up. So if we went into war, some type of military conflict, he literally is a non-player, technically. So I don't know that his chart would be affected. But what's interesting is he carries a Venus-Pluto square, right? Which makes him greedy as all get out. Like if you're wondering, people, people. So the Venus-Pluto square, and I've said this before. He Cancer. He doesn't give up nothing. He's not letting go of anything. With Venus and Gemini squaring Pluto and Virgo, and the Moon in Virgo as well. He's extremely petty and short-sighted, right? So he's not the creative visionary. He's not a visionary of anything that people think he is. He's just really, really good at parlaying lateral moves, right? So what do I have now that I can roll into something else to make more networked, connected things with? So it's more like an octopus with multiple arms reaching out, sort of thing. That's not a visionary. In any event, he takes this eclipse on his Pluto, which is closer in square to the Venus. So I would look for, with him, and I would be very wary of this, right? I would look for a couple of things. One, I would look for, so this is definitely going to have to do with finance, because this is all sitting in his second house. So and Pluto is about power grabs, right? And so I would look for even more, as if it were possible, further overreach and extension into other people's money. Pluto is other people's money. And also with Venus squaring, and Venus rules money, and Venus and Gemini. So I think this has to do with, but see, this is the thing, like Gemini has to do with transportation as well as communications, and all of his stuff. Think about this for a second. All of his stuff is communication and transportation, right? All of his projects, communication and transportation. So whatever this is, he's going to get hit hard. I don't know that this is going to be good. But see, and Venus is sitting right on his 12th house. Whatever this is going on behind the scenes. So he's doing something to parlay or expand or increase his reach and his grab, what he can get available to himself. But it will be behind closed door dealings, more of the same, right? But watch this space, because he gets hit with the next eclipse. So whatever started here, we may see play out with the next eclipse. And this is Tulsi Gabbard. She is the Director of National Intelligence. So if conflict or war were to break out, I would look at something like that, because that would definitely be, she would be pulled into this. Now, again, she's not really getting hit, but she, like Vance, is having her Neptune activated. And again, Neptune, murky, underhanded, not transparent, behind closed door deal sort of thing. And also this sits in her second house of finances and pulls in her fifth house of risky investments. So she may find herself taking some chances or receiving some support, some investment for her cooperation in certain matters. What they are, we don't know yet. She's definitely one to watch with this eclipse. So right now, moving through summer, these are some people we need to keep an eye on. But like I said, with Vance and Tulsi, because they're not being blatantly dragged into anything with this particular eclipse, it's all sort of behind the scenes, closed door stuff. I would wonder what these two sneaky links are up to, because they may prove to be key players later on in terms of whatever demise is happening as we go through summer. So I thought this was interesting. Mike Waltz is the National Security Advisor. He is a combat decorated Green Beret who served in Afghanistan, the Middle East, and Africa, serves on multiple House committees, including the Armed Forces and Foreign Affairs committees. And his job is to act as the president's right hand on security issues and work closely with the Departments of State and Defense to understand the White House's options in times of crisis. This eclipse will absolutely hit his Saturn. It's wide, but it is there. So he will be tested. He will be tested in terms of the absolute limits and strength of his character and his experience. So whatever that, we may come close to getting involved in something and just narrowly miss it. But he's being drawn into this. And given his role in the administration, this is a pretty serious warning, because he will absolutely be challenged in terms of what he knows how to do and what he can do and wisdom of his choices. So this is yikes. He's not going to be a happy guy during this time. Now, pay attention, because here's what I thought was interesting about this. This Hegseth, this lying, rapist, alcoholic, low-level officer from a National Guard Fox News host, this is Mike Waltz's boss. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? This is like you having a PhD in anything, and literally your boss, his previous job before he became your boss, was the fry cook at McDonald's. Like, this is this is literally what this looks like. And this could explain why Mike Waltz is going to be extremely unhappy during the time of this eclipse, because he can't overrule Hegseth. Hegseth is his boss. And notably, Hegseth, out of all these people so far, Hegseth, along with Trump, is getting the hardest hit with this eclipse. So I'm wondering if something Hegseth does or doesn't do or does wrong is going to be where the problem is. Because if you look, right, so the eclipse is occurring here, right, at 23 Virgo. Now, it is absolutely going to pull in his Saturn consequences, karma. Remember, final exam, you're getting what you earned when Saturn's involved, right? And his Neptune, okay, which again is deception, lies, underhanded behavior, sabotage, dirty dealings. Now, he carries natally a Saturn-Neptune square, which is not good. And this is, as far as we know, this is an actual correct birth time. So he's got Neptune rising on the chart. Saturn's in the 9th. Neptune in that first house, squaring Saturn. Sag, la la la. Anyway, I'll spare you the astrology stuff. But basically, this particular setup, the Saturn-Neptune setup in his chart, lends itself to very specific ideologies that are very hard to change. So once he believes something, he absolutely believes it with all the ferocity and determination and unwillingness to change his mind of a 4-year-old, with all the sophistication and thinking that goes with it. So the challenge is that the bigotry and stuff that we have heard about with him, oh, it runs deep. It runs bone deep, honey. He's not good people. Because in many, many ways, he's very, very delusional. And add to that, the fact that he's an alcoholic doesn't really help, right? So Neptune is the key player in his natal chart. And we've got the moon in Pisces, deposited by that Neptune. We've got Venus opposing that Neptune. We've got Saturn squaring that Neptune. Everything revolves around his Neptune. And we know that his Neptune is dysfunctional based on everything we know about him so far. He's had plenty of time to live his life and be a different person, and he has instead become a worse version of what he could possibly be. So, you know, this is what we got in charge of defense. An inexperienced alcoholic, rapist, liar. And Mike Waltz is and he is Mike Waltz's boss. Mike Waltz, who by every measure should actually be in this position, but you know, what are you going to do? Anyway, this eclipse is absolutely hitting his chart. So something Pete Hegseth doesn't do, or does wrong is going to literally, stuff is going to hit the fan, and this could be the end of his career. This could be the end of his career. So I'm curious to see what happens. Now, if we end up in a military conflict, because of this eclipse, I will tell you now, this is the last person I want involved in any of that. And that could be exactly what's happening. Whatever this military skirmish is or conflict that we're looking at potentially getting involved in may be a direct result of dingleberries, you know, just oh my God, just from him, right? And the fact that Trump nominated him, and Trump may be held beholden to him, or these two may be working like hand in glove. I'm not completely sure, and I'm sorry I don't have more answers for you, but we definitely want to watch this space. Hegseth gets hit the hardest. Hegseth and Trump both get hit the hardest with this eclipse. So whatever's happening, it's hitting them simultaneously, and they're going down together. So let's see what happens. Now, this is Russell Vought, and Russell Vought does not get hit with this eclipse in this Virgo Virgo? Yeah, Virgo eclipse that we're looking at in March. He doesn't get hit with this. He does get hit with the one in Aries coming up shortly behind that. So whatever this eclipse brings in the middle of March will not pull him in. So that was interesting. But like I said, he gets hit later. He's a whole other thing. Now, if you don't know who Vought is, you really want to look him up. So he is confirmed as the Office of Management and Budget, I think it is. He is an incredibly important person in the White House. And he is a racist in no uncertain terms. He's a bad man. So he is one of the what they call the architect of Project 2025, which is literally the step-by-step instruction manual for how to take over the government and do exactly what these idiots are doing right now as we speak. He helped write the playbook how to get it done. Okay. There's a whole lot of weirdness in this Project 2025 thing, manuscript. So if you're not familiar with it, you really want to take some time and go look at it. You need to understand what we're dealing with. Like burying your head in the sand is not going to help you, because we're here now. We are here now, and ignorance is not your friend. So look him up. He's a bad man. And again, we're pretty sure we've got the correct birth time, which puts Saturn at the top of the chart or on the ascendant. So he is an Aries, but he's got Saturn in Cancer, all this Cancer in these people's charts, rising on the chart. He's as stingy and mean and selfish as the day is long. So he absolutely will have no problem playing the Marquis de Sade and starving little children and making the homeless, like die in the streets sort of stuff. He's not a nice person. And we can do more about his chart later, but I'm going to leave this here and we're going to keep moving. So keep an eye on him. But like I said, he doesn't get pulled into this March 15th eclipse, the Virgo eclipse. He gets pulled in later. And here is our favorite tinfoil hat wearing head of Health and Human Services, Mr. Anti-Vax himself, RFK Jr. Now, RFK Jr. has Jupiter conjunct, or a fixed star called a Regal at 17 Gemini, which is a very, very lucky star. And we're going to see how lucky he is because this eclipse at 23 Virgo that we're looking at, it's wide and it's weak involving his Jupiter, but it's still kind of sort of there. And basically, we're not really seeing him getting pulled into this yet. He's got his own issues coming up. But with him, even though, and this is the thing with eclipses, right? Even though it's an eclipse, and it's a particularly gnarly one involving Saturn, it still involves his natal Jupiter, which is on a lucky fixed star. So whatever happens, he's going to get through this particular episode safe and unscathed. So, but again, Mr. Anti-Vax himself, he's got a whole set of other problems he'll be dealing with. So now this brings us to the second eclipse of the month, which will be at 9 Aries. So, which is going to be right here. Change color. So to recap everything so far, there is a possibility of some type of military skirmish going on. We know that Hegseth and Trump are getting hammered, wailed by this eclipse in the middle of the month. So whatever is going on with Hegseth and Trump, those two are going down together. They're absolutely tied together, whatever this is. And it's not good. It's not good. There's a very real possibility Trump may be removed from office, but not quite yet because we're not seeing any real activity in J.D. Vance's chart. Because if Trump gets removed from office, J.D. Vance it moves up, which means we should see more of that in his chart. J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard both have a lot of Neptune being activated in their chart, and also with fifth house, risky investments and things of that nature. So these two are going to be very instrumental in some behind the scenes shady dealings. I would be very, very cautious and pay a lot of attention to what's going on with this two as best we can, because there's stuff there. Their loyalty is to no one but themselves, which we can pretty much say for all the congressmen in government right now. But some people are more slippery than others. Tulsi and Vance are two slippery, slimy little snakes. So be aware. Be aware. Mike Waltz is the person who is he's the advisor for the president in times of conflict, and he is under Hegseth of all people. And Mike Waltz is not going to be having a good time during this eclipse. So my suspicion is we've got some stuff coming. And it's going to be something specific to Hegseth and Trump baiting, or inviting in military conflict. And this is going to give Mike Waltz everything short of a migraine or a freaking brain hemorrhage, because he's really going to have his work cut out for him trying to keep this under control. And last but not least, of course, Musk. Musk will be carrying a T-square with these eclipses. But it's separate from this. So Musk has some stuff going on that is going to affect him financially. So we've been seeing some downward spiral with his finances recently, but it should reach critical mass about the time this eclipse hits in the middle of March. And again, remember, eclipses have a 6-month window. So these eclipses are going to play out well into July or the summer of this year. So we have until summer to see this stuff finish playing out or manifesting whatever it's going to manifest. Now, in brief, going back to the 9-degree Aries eclipse at the end of the month, okay? Now, here's the critical month, by the way, for this summer is going to be July. Watch that month. And I just made a quick list of what we're looking at and who this hits, because this seems to hit everybody, this 9 Aries eclipse. So the first thing is Elon Musk has his natal Uranus at 9 Libra, which rules his 8th house of debt and shared resources and his 12th house of secrets and self-undoing. And he is absolutely taking this eclipse to that Uranus. So Uranus has a lot to do with unexpected or circumstantial things that we have no control over. So he may be getting hit hard by some circumstances well beyond his or anybody else's control that's really going to completely undo his finances. And it may be no small share of his own self-undoing, but we'll see. And also do 8th houses. So he may have debts, loans and debts that are coming into play that need to be paid off. And that makes him the most dangerous person in the administration right now, because he's all over everything that has to do with the national money. And he's got debts. He's got debts. He's got debts he's not telling us about. And he only thinks of himself. So he would be more than happy to sell us off to save himself. Okay, anyway. Now, Donald Trump gets hit the hardest with the first eclipse, but he's not safe because the second eclipse absolutely hits, ready, his chart ruler. Remember, if he is early Virgo rising, which I think he is, the chart ruler then becomes Mercury, and this eclipse at 9 Aries is absolutely going to square his chart ruler. Now, we know he's getting hit with the first one, he's getting hit with the second one. I'm convinced this man's going to get removed from office before we even get to fall. But we'll see. But whatever it is, like July is the month to watch. Tulsi Gabbard, she's the director of national intelligence. She's basically in charge of the CIA, and the FBI and all sorts of stuff. Her Mercury is at 8 Aries. It rules her 8th house of debt and shared resources, and also her 11th house of group affiliations and unexpected events. So this eclipse is absolutely going to hit her Mercury, and I'm wondering if some type of something will be revealed. Something will be revealed, and absolutely, I think she's got debts too that are going to need to be repaid, and that's going to come into play as well. Pete Hegseth, who we know is going to be hand in glove with Trump as far as whatever trouble comes down. So he is the Secretary of Defense. His Mercury is at 9 Cancer. That rules his 7th house of legal partnerships and open enemies, as well as his 9th house of foreigners and long distance or foreign or ethical matters. I think that by the time we get to summer, when these eclipses have played themselves out, it's going to be Pete Hegseth that is going to be the source of the problems. Because I don't see him staying in his position much longer either. But I don't know how you get people like that out of their jobs. But whatever that is, it's going to pull in Trump with him. So that we got to watch. Now, what's interesting is with all three of these, right? With Donald, with Tulsi, and with Pete, Mercury is being activated in all three charts, which suggests that their own mouths, their big freaking mouths, is literally what's going to land them in trouble. So this Mercury man, their big mouth, it's going to literally what's going to get them in trouble. So there's that. Okay. Now, at the time of this eclipse, Mike Waltz, who, remember, works under Pete Hegseth. It should be the other way around, but you know, nothing else makes any sense these days. So Mike Waltz, who is the National Security Advisor, carries his Pluto at 6 Libra. Now, we don't know what house Pluto rules in his chart, but we do know that Pluto has a lot to do with power, and bigger picture stuff. So again, this suggests that something this knucklehead is doing is going to pull in Donald Trump and Mike Waltz into the crap show that Pete Hegseth has literally created. So, and also too, this could be something for Mr. Waltz in terms of him elevating his own position through relationships, like very important key power relationships. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, Russell Vought, who is the architect of Project 2025 and literally the director of Office Management and Budget, which is like one of the most important offices in the administration just after the presidency, who is a bigot and a Christian nationalist and a wackadoodle, and he hates women. Like, oh my God, the list goes on and on and on. Read Project 2025. Now, this particular eclipse is also going to hit his Pluto. Again, power plays, right? Things going on behind the scenes, relationships, but like quiet power play relationships, okay? Now, his Pluto rules his 5th house of creative projects and personal passions, and of course, risky investments. So I would be curious to see what is coming up that is putting Russell Vought in a position where he can actively pursue things that have deep personal meaning to him. And if you're not scared about that, because you don't know enough about Russell Vought, what has deep personal meaning to him is bad for the rest of us. So there's something to think about. So these two, Mike Waltz and Russell Vought, are also people to watch in terms of what's going on behind the scenes, because they're going to be very, very key players and very instrumental in the direction things are going. You know, and as always, it's going to be for their own benefit, typically. But you want to watch these guys because this eclipse is absolutely getting them too, but it's getting them at their Pluto. RFK Jr., you know, I'm going to save him for last. It's interesting. So in the United States chart, now we carry the Sun and Jupiter at 13 and 5 Cancer. So we will absolutely get hit with this again with the second eclipse at the end of the month. The Sun and Jupiter rules our 9th house of foreign affairs and ethics and our 1st house of identity. So by the time we get to the second eclipse, right, and by the time we finish summer and we get past July, our identity as a nation and our relationships with foreigners, people who are not United States citizens, right, and countries, everybody but us, is going to be under fire. And it's going to be, because it's an eclipse, it's going to be radically changed from what it's been. Could be good, could be bad. It depends on whether we pass our final exam with the previous eclipse. So let's hope that when things hit the fan, and they will, that we do the right thing. We rise up and we start correcting this mess. But again, I'm telling you, so July is the critical month here, and it's going to be Hegseth and Trump that are going to be the people who are catalyzing this series of events that will allow us to rise up or like pass or fail our final exams. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And finally, I just want to give this to you. So this is RFK Jr. So now he's going to hit with these eclipses as well. He is our anti-vax Secretary of Health and Human Services, our own personal freaking wackadoodle in charge. I swear they're trying to kill us. I really do. I think they're trying to kill us all. Now, he carries a natal moon at 10 Cancer, which, you know, for the most part, it's a very strong position and it's very attractive to people. It garners a lot of sympathy. Women love him. Moon in Cancer. Men with Moon in Cancer. Women love men with Moon in Cancer. They're so nurturing. You just want to mommy them. And literally, even though he could be crazier than a $3 bill, it doesn't matter. Women will love him. his moon rules his 12th house, which is the house of secrets and self-undoing. And there are a couple of other things going on with his chart, which lead me to believe that RFK Jr. may not have his position very much longer either because of physical or mental health issues. So this literally may be the end of the road for him before this year is over. And all of this is a result of all of these eclipses. So remember, July is a critical month, mark your calendars, and we've got a 6-month window from September to October. And again, this isn't answering the question about whether we're going to war, but I don't see it. I don't see it. I see military conflict. I see a whole lot of problems. I see a whole lot of problems with this horse's ass and this one, right? And they may not last in their positions, okay? So they may be forcibly removed for good reasons when all of this plays out. And of course, this one may not be around for health reasons, physical or mental. In the meantime, we got to watch Tulsi, because she's a sneaky link, her and Vance. And also, these two are going to become very, very important players as time moves on, because they're going to pick up the reins and start making things happen, because all of these guys are going to be removed. So there you go. I don't know if this helps. Made me feel a little bit better. At least I have some sense of time moving forward. So we'll see. We'll see. I know this is a really long video. I'm sorry, you guys. I've got markers down below to help you kind of pop in and out. All right. So here is the United States chart. This is the eclipse for the Aries eclipse. It's coming out of our 4th and 10th house. This is just not good. And it's involving our sun Jupiter in that 7th. We're going to have some problems, and covering the 1st and 9th, we're going to have some problems, and a lot of the problems we're going to have to do with our relationships with other nations and other countries, and it's not good problems. We've got quite the hole we're going to have to dig ourselves out of, and everything will reach critical mass as we get to the 2nd eclipse at the end of March, which will also take us into the summer. Now, this particular eclipse comes out of the 4th and 10th house, so this has everything to do with national identity. We're literally going to have to make decisions, real clear-cut decisions about who we are as a nation, as a community. And that's it. Like, it's not theoretical now. We're literally going to have to make a stand and support who we support, and we're going to have to make a decision about who we want to be moving forward into the future. And this is who, and this is his chart. So he takes the eclipse at 9 Aries, squaring his Mercury at 9 Cancer. Now, we know his Mercury rules his 2nd house, and it also squares Neptune. He's got a Mercury Neptune square ruling his chart, which has everything to do with finances and fraud. So right now, as we speak, Musk and his minions have gotten into the Treasury Department, not the Treasury, the Tax Department, the IRS, for unknown reasons. And I'm telling you, this is a lot to do with the tax returns that were never, ever actually disclosed or shared with us. Remember back in the first time around, and there were issues with his taxes, and they were never forthcoming with him. So we never actually got to see his taxes or where his money's coming from. And I'm positive that this is why, among other things, there's always a task list involved. But one of the priority tasks right now is for Musk to get in and make those tax records for Trump disappear, because Trump doesn't want anyone knowing how much money he's accepted from the Russians. So this eclipse is absolutely coming out of his 2nd and 8th house, and it's pulling in his 2nd house ruler, yada yada yada. So his money, his finances, where his funding is coming from, is definitely up for review and may come out in the open at this time. This is the chart from Musk. He's taking the Aries eclipse on his Uranus, right, and his Chiron from the 9th, the 3rd and the 9th house, and it involves his 8th house of shared resources and debt. The man is in debt to somebody, or maybe multiple somebodies, but he's heading for a real financial crisis coming up during this last eclipse of the month, taking us through summer. So it will be interesting to see what happens to his fortunes as they spin and turn on a dime as we get through the summer. But he may not be the world's richest man in the world when this is over. And this one, I can't even, I can't even, oh my God. Um, I just put this up here so you guys can see it. The eclipse is at 9 Aries. She's got Mercury at 8 Aries. Um, it's opposing Jupiter, Saturn, yada, yada, yada. So we'll see what goes on with her. She's not a huge player, but she's in a critical enough role, and I think she's got some debt as well. Or somebody is offering her some really attractive, high risk investment into her, that she is something we want to keep an eye on. Oh my God, and this poor guy, Mike Waltz. So he takes the eclipse on his Pluto in that 7th house, which means he's going to make some key connections and relationships, and have more than a few power struggles with key people that he partners with, or that he has a face-to-face relationships with. And this is all after that Saturn activation, so I wouldn't want to be him. But yeah, so he's got some major changes coming in terms of who his allegiances are with, but it will be no end to the power plays and pushback that he'll be receiving. Which is interesting because he's the National Security Advisor. You shouldn't be pushing back against the National Security Advisor. I would think they would know what they're talking about, but you know. And then, of course, there is the man of the hour, who I think is going to be one of the major reasons, him and Trump are going to be one of the major reasons we're going to have all sorts of problems between now and July, much bigger than we're already dealing with, as if that were possible, because this is all going to involve foreign conflict, right? Dealing with the foreigners. The eclipse is at 9 Aries, and it will be squaring his Mercury at 9 Cancer in the 7th house. Aries, of course, that eclipse is occurring in his 4th and his 10th. He's going to lose his job. He won't have his job. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but I think he's going to be forcibly removed from his job for necessary reasons before the summer is over. So watch this space. Oh, and this guy, Russell Vought. I'm telling you, you really want to look him up. I didn't know about him until recently myself, so it's just what it is. But Russell Vought takes this eclipse on his Pluto in that 3rd house. So whatever his master plans are, it's there in full force. He's gunning it, and also too the Sun. So because he's got a Sun-Pluto opposition in his chart. He's very much about power and control, and he literally only sees things in terms of his own reflection. So there's a whole lot of male vanity and conceit, and white male vanity and conceit specific to that particular type of mindset that he operates with. Russell Vought, in case you didn't know, has a lot of opinions and ideas, and he's now in charge of the budget, right? He's in charge of where the money goes. He has never served in the military, but he's got a lot of ideas about how we're giving too much to these guys for disability and benefits and everything else. So he's literally taking back a lot of it, and not doing even less for the homeless vets and all sorts of stuff. This man has never served a day in the military. He has no idea the sacrifices that we ask people to make when they join the military. But he thinks it's okay to look at on paper, and make decisions about where we're spending our money. So he's literally like the guy in the corporate office that makes all the decisions about downsizing and reducing employees and staff and cutting, this, that, and the other thing to increase the shareholders' profit, but at the expense of the workers, right? So this is Russell Vought, on top of a whole lot of other weirdness he's responsible for. Look him up. He's dangerous, and he is absolutely coming into play this year after the summer. Oh my goodness, and this is our favorite Tin Hat Charlie. He carries the moon at 10 Cancer. The eclipse will be at 9 Aries, coming out of his 10th house. And also, he's got Neptune at 6 Libra, which is squaring that moon, which is why he's a nutter, right? He lives in his own little world. And women love him, so they're happy to let him stay there. But all of this is pulling in his 12th house, which again, I say is physical or mental health. So he's got some health issues that may take him out of play as we move through the year, and certainly by summer. I hate to say it, but with this moon square Neptune, either addiction and alcoholism is going to be an issue again after this eclipse gets activated, or the possibility of depression and self-harm. So we'll see, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good. Okay, and you got to remember, this might be one of the most challenging times of your life, but it is still a challenge, not the end of the world. You might be losing a livelihood, a career, an identity, a set of beliefs, or other things that can all be replaced. What you did not lose is your children to the gunfire of a madman and the apathy of senators. Senators who could have done something and didn't because their future profits mattered more to them than your children. You can resurrect a career or rebuild a life. You cannot bring children back from the dead. Stay strong, wake up, and stand together. No one gets through this life alone. We can fix this.